am thrilled today to introduce Chris and Megan. So, Chris helps nonprofits achieve their financial goals by creating custom investment strategies that align with their mission so they can focus on making a bigger impact. He's also the father of adorable twin babies and has an accent that you all will love. With over a decade of experience in fundraising, Megan has a proven track record of helping nonprofits diversify their funding streams and raise more money. She and her husband also enjoy exploring the US in their camper. We love Chris and Megan, and I'm just really excited for you all to hear from them today. Also, if you haven't followed us on social media, we will soon be posting over there a little trailer that we did from with them. We went to a recent conference, the Nonprofit Innovation Summit, and over there we did a little trailer, an Indiana Jones themed trailer. So stay tuned for that. So I'm going to hand it all over to Chris, who will kick us off on our webinar content today.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for introducing us. And it's a pleasure to meet you all virtually to talk to you about this very, very important topic. So let's just first approach, how do stock gifts differ from traditional cash donations? Stock gifts let donors contribute more without needing to pull from their checking accounts. Because unlike cash donations, which are often limited to what a donor can give immediately, stock gifts reflect the broader value of a donor's investments and overall wealth. And this allows you to meet donors where they are financially, which is really important in today's world where personalized giving is really becoming the norm. And remember what we learned earlier, over 90% of wealth in the United States is held in non-cash assets, such as stocks. So if you're only focusing on cash donations, you're tapping only into a very, very small portion of your donor's potential wealth. And stock gifts, they usually require a lot more planning and coordination, both from the donor side as well as from the nonprofit side. The latter we'll get into a little bit later. These types of gifts often come from major donors who have very well cultivated relationships with your organization. And building those relationships does take time, but in the end, it's extremely rewarding for both the donor and the nonprofit. So stock donations have the potential to offer major tax benefits for donors. And when donors do give stock, they can avoid paying capital gains taxes. Plus, if they've held the stock for more than a year, they'll be able to deduct the full fair market value of the stock. So that gives them a bigger tax break compared to if they sold those securities and then donated the proceeds to you. It is one of the most tax efficient ways to give. Let's break down an example just for you. Say Tony bought 200 shares of ABC stock valued at $100 a share, and 10 years later, those shares have appreciated from $100 to $300. Not bad, Tony. Say if he sells those 200 shares, he'll actually have to pay capital gains tax on that $40,000 increase in value, which means that if you take the top rate of tax for capital gains tax rates, assuming that major donors typically have pretty good income streams as is, that's around $8,000 in taxes that he would be paying, that he's required to give to Uncle Sam. But if he decided to donate the stock directly to the nonprofit because it was something he was educated about that was available to him, he doesn't have to pay that $8,000 in tax. Instead, the full $60,000 goes straight to the nonprofit. And so by donating it instead of selling it, he avoids a capital gains tax, gets a larger tax deduction, and the charity receives a bigger donation. It's really a win-win-win. So as we previously mentioned, donors can give much more through stock donations than they could with cash, and that's because they avoid those capital gains taxes. In addition to saving on taxes, when donors look at their overall wealth rather than just what's in their bank account, they're likely to contribute more. We have one of our clients here at Carnegie where they've actually structured their giving with a nonprofit over multiple years. Over this 10-year period, they're donating around $100,000 annually in appreciated stock. Typically, it's just a little bit less than that. And then the remainder, the difference between what actually hits the account of the nonprofit and that $100,000 mark, they then top that difference up with cash. And this has allowed them to give consistently at a much higher level than they could just by giving cash alone. And just think of those tax benefits multiplied throughout an entire decade. Stock donations can help fund sustainability for your nonprofit, and some donors, they set up these annual stock gifts as part of their giving strategy, and that creates a really reliable funding stream. But others also use stock donations as part of planned giving to establish an endowment, or even just a one-off gift. The great thing about when securities are received into the nonprofit's account is that you're not forced to sell those securities immediately. You can hold on to it. You can use it as the basis for starting an endowment of your own. It doesn't have any effect on the donor once you've received the securities. And a lot of nonprofits mainly focus on cash donations, and they're missing out on the opportunities that stock gifts can bring. Stock donations are becoming more popular as donors learn how to optimize their giving. In fact, there's a study by Dr. Russell James from Texas Tech University, and it looked over a million nonprofit tax returns from 2010 to 2016. And here's what they found. Organizations that only accepted cash gifts saw 11% growth in contributions over a 5-year time period. But those that did accept non-cash gifts, such as stocks, saw their contributions grow by 66% during that same time period. That is a measurable difference, a huge difference. So when should you begin promoting stock gifts? I mean, the simple answer is now, and that's what we'll pass it over to Megan later on to really get into the nitty-gritty of how you can get that done. But it's never too early. Every nonprofit, no matter its size, has donors that are capable of giving in bigger and more impactful ways. Some of your donors may be already considering how to give beyond traditional cash donations, but they really need you to open the door. If they don't know, they don't know. In fact, we've encountered nonprofits that have missed significant opportunities because they weren't prepared to accept stock donations. One organization, for example, lost out, and I'm not kidding here, on a multi-million-dollar stock gift because they didn't have the infrastructure in place to process stock contributions at year end when the donor was looking to make a gift. We're talking in the last week or two, didn't have the infrastructure in place, and it's a zero barrier to entry process to set this up. And unfortunately, as a result, they missed out. The key takeaway here is that it's crucial to start promoting stock gifts now and be prepared to guide your donors through this process. But as with any successful fundraising strategy, knowing who to focus on is just as important as knowing when to start. And as I said, as I promised, to dive into that deeper, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Megan Lankowski, our nonprofit development specialist here at Carnegie. Megan will walk you through 4 ideal donor profiles, people who are most likely to be interested in making stock donations, and then share some insights on how to actually educate them and nurture these donors for success. So without further ado, over to you, Megan.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so let's talk about how to identify the right donors for stock gifts. Because as we all know, not every donor is the same. So by segmenting your current donor base, you can target the people who already love your cause and also can benefit the most from this type of gift. So let's walk through 4 ideal donor profiles that are great candidates for stock donations. The first one we have is established professionals. So these donors are typically in their mid-career or later. They are often business owners, executives, or in professional fields, and they've built significant wealth throughout their career. So these folks are often big on giving back, and they've worked really hard for their wealth and want to make sure their contributions go as far as possible. So they're often interested in learning about ways to maximize their tax benefits while also supporting the causes that they care about. So, to engage with this group, really focus on the potential tax benefits and how simple it is to donate stock. You can even offer them personalized consultations or educational resources that really walk them through the process. Because the key here is really to make sure that they realize that it's impactful and easy to do. Our next group are the seasoned donors and board members. So these folks have already have a long history with your organization. You know who they are. They're the people that you go to when your hot water tank broke and you need to buy a new one, or a family in your program needs a bus ticket. They are loyal, they're committed, and they regularly contribute to your organization already. So because of their loyalty, they're always looking for ways to deepen their impact, but they may not have considered donations of stock or even know that it's an option. So it's really up to you to open up that door for them. So to engage with them, highlight how stock donations can open this door for them to give at an even higher level and allow them to make an even bigger impact without straining their cash flow. Next group we have are high net worth individuals. So these are individuals with substantial wealth, and a big chunk of that is often tied up in investments like you can identify this group through past giving patterns or wealth screenings. We have a wealth screening resource that I'll make sure it gets included in the follow-up resources for you guys. So these individuals often have the help of a financial or tax or investment advisor. So they're often already knowledgeable about these tax strategies such as these. However, they may be giving these types of gifts to other organizations already. So, but they may not be aware that your organization is set up and has the infrastructure to accept these types of gifts, or that you have the forethought of sustainability in mind. So, to engage with this group, we really want to focus on providing a tailored approach. This group would really appreciate that personalization of services. So, offer guidance and make sure that they note that this type of giving is easy and very much appreciated. They will really resonate with that white glove service. So our last group of donor profiles for stock donations are end of year tax planners. These are donors that are focused on maximizing their tax deductions as the year wraps up. So you can identify them because they often make large donations in December. So look at your past giving history. These individuals, they're driven by tax savings, but they may not realize how much they could save on their tax bill by donating stocks. So it's your opportunity responsibility to educate them. So, to engage with this group, timing is really everything here. We're coming up on a perfect time as year end campaigns are launching right now. So, during your year end fundraising, make sure you're communicating all the potential tax advantages of stock donations. Show them how quick and easy it is to transfer stocks before year end so that they can lock in those potential tax benefits. And make sure that your organization is set up to accept those donations in the last few days of the year. As we learned, remember, 10% of all giving happens in the last 3 days of the year. I mean, 3 days is less than 1% um, of all of the entire year. So that's a significant number. And we will get into how to get started in just a moment. So one quick note on these ideal donor types. These are great profiles for you to use when segmenting your outreach efforts for stock donations. But I do want to remind you to never count anybody out. When I was development director for a nonprofit domestic violence shelter, we had an individual show up at our office in not traditional, nice clothing, had some dirt and holes in his clothing. He showed up, asked to speak with our executive director. She quickly came out, gave him lots of time conversing with him. And at the end, he shared that before he came to our doors, he was just at another organization. He had walked in and asked to speak with someone, and he waited for over 3 hours, and nobody even came out to check on him or let him know that, that it would be a little bit somebody who would be coming out. So he left there, came to our doors. He said he appreciated the thoughtfulness that we showed him and the care, and he would like to donate $141,000 worth of stock to our organization. So it's just a reminder that to never count anybody out, and we should always treat everybody with kindness and care. So how do you actually get started with being ready to accept gifts of stock? And it's really simpler than you might think. Your first step is going to be to open a brokerage account. So if you're just getting started out, you'll want to make sure you look for a broker with no minimums. Fidelity is one example of this. Having this account ready allows your nonprofit to easily receive stock gifts when your donors are ready to give. Next, you're going to want to make sure that you create an investment policy statement and internal process. So you can think of your investment policy statement like a roadmap for how your nonprofit will manage stock donations. We have a webinar recording resource that we can include in the follow-up resources on how to build an investment policy statement for your nonprofit. You'll also want to make sure that your internal donation and stewardship processes are documented. When a donor wants to donate stock, who initiates the transaction, who needs to be notified, what follow-up documentation is needed, etc. Outlining all these key details of what actually happens in the process will make sure that your team is all on the same page. You're prepared and confident for when a gift of stock does come in. And then lastly, you're going to promote and educate your donors, because if you don't talk about it, you are much, much, much less likely to attract these types of gifts. As Chris said, if they don't know, they don't know. So start educating your donors through all of your communication outlets, through email, website, at donor meetings. Make sure that you're discussing these types of gifts and sharing social proof of other types of gifts like this that you've got. All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Natasha Paradesi, co-founder of Solace Media. She's going to discuss a few tips on how to attract these types of gifts and engage your donors, and then lead us into the Q&A. So Natasha?
Thanks, Megan. So now that your organization is ready to accept the gifts of stock, like Megan said, you want to let people know that this option is available for them to give. So you want to make sure to integrate stock gifts into all your fundraising campaigns. And just as year end is coming up, we're going to ask for gifts of stock as well, no matter the size of your organization. And you want to make sure there's a simple, clear donation process for that to happen on your website. And we're going to actually show you an example of a landing page. You want to share success stories and social proof. So your impact stories and also how other gifts of stock have benefited and impacted your organization, and it allowed you to advance your mission. And then you want to include the stock gift language everywhere that you ask for donations, whether that's on remittance envelopes when you're sending out your year-end campaign via mail, and on your donation pages. And then you're going to create a landing page to educate and capture donor details. It's not really enough just to say that we accept gifts of stock. You're now going to want to have a landing page to actually share language like benefits of donating stock, what the process is, and then actually getting a form and ready for them to accept donor information. You'll also want to add stock donations to your email nurture series. And lastly, you want to send targeted segmented emails before year end, because you may have already identified a segment of your donors that fit some of these profiles that Megan spoke about earlier, and sending them key information on how they can maximize their year end giving by giving stock. This is kind of an example. This isn't the full landing page. When you get our resources after this email, you'll see a full example of a landing page about how to accept gifts of stock, but you'll see that they have the nice hero image on the top. Then there's a section about the benefits of donating stock, how to get started. It's very easy because you want to make something that sounds complicated to people easy for them to understand, and then have a form that there's not a lot of information that they need to share to get started, but then you'll have that form for them to get started. All right, I'm going to hand it back to Megan, who's going to share a little bit about how you can speak with Carnegie on getting started on accepting gifts of stock.
Great, thank you. And Natasha, and one note about that landing page. So that is a simple landing page. Anybody can build that. You can build that on your current system. We at Carnegie build this custom page for our clients to make it easy. And one thing I wanted to note about the form, that form doesn't actually make the transaction. It's not like a donate form where they're putting in their credit card information. What the point of this form is so when it is 9 p.m. at night and the donor is on your website and they're thinking about you, they can fill in their information quickly for us to receive that information and then follow up with them. Don't make them think, okay, I'll call them tomorrow to make this donation, because they may not. So thank you, Natasha. I appreciate that. Thanks for letting me go back. All right. So at Carnegie Investment Council, we specialize in helping nonprofits with over $500,000 in investable assets create custom investment portfolios tailored to their unique goals. So as a special offer to everybody on this call, we are happy to provide a free consultation to answer any questions you may have about accepting stocks or attracting stock donations for your organization. So you can use this link here to schedule a meeting. It's also in the chat and will also be included in the follow-up email resources as well. So if you're interested in learning more about how we can partner with your nonprofit to manage your investments and support your mission, please book a call or reach out directly. We would be happy to meet and discuss further. So we do have a few more minutes left. I think we're going to turn that possibly over to Q&A. Natasha?
Yes, absolutely. And also, Carrie's gonna go ahead and pop in a link, a survey link in the chat. So if you fill out this survey, we also want to let you know that you'll be entered into win a $100 credit towards any marketing project with Solus Media. So we want to be able to give you content that's relevant and helpful to all your organizations, no matter whether or not you are our clients. And so we want to give that to you. So please feel free to go ahead and fill out that survey, and that'll help us tailor content to what all your needs are going forward. So we have some questions here for Megan and Chris. We may go over a little bit, so if you guys have to hop off at 11:30, please feel free to. And we just thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. So Megan and Chris, Carrie asks if you have any other suggestions for simple language to use to promote non-cash gift policy on your website. Carrie, I was going to say that we're going to send that out, also the examples in our resources after the email, but our resources after the webinar. Megan, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I think that's great. If yes, looking for specific language, don't make me word vomit it right now, but we will share those, we will share that example landing page so you can see the exact language that we use on those landing pages. And I really would say that the key is to pepper this idea in throughout your overall giving strategy. So anywhere that you are already asking for donations or sharing impact stories, those are great ways to just pepper in the idea. Oh, and there also is stock donations. If you're sharing a success story and an impact statement, this success was made possible because of a gift of stock. Making sure, in marketing, we have the rule of 7 that we need to see a message 7 times. Someone else needs to see our message 7 times before they look at it as familiar and recognize it and want to take action. And so you'll want to keep that in mind in this context as well. You will be talking about gifts of stock in all of your wherever you're currently asking for donations, and then having that landing page and or a simple brochure or handout that you can give that walks through the actual steps is key for when somebody has seen that you accept stocks. They've seen it, 4 or 5 times throughout the year. Now it's getting towards year end, and I want to make this gift of stock. Let me reach out to find out more information, and then you can redirect them to the landing page or to any informational and printed information that you have.
That's great. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's the typical timeline from when a donor initiates a stock gift to when the nonprofit can actually access the funds?
Sure, I'll take that. So when a donor reaches out, it's typically done by something called an ACAT transfer. I won't get too technical, but we're talking anywhere from a couple of days to maybe at max 1 to 2 weeks. And then typically once the funds come in, you'll use the IRS methodology to, at least we do that for our clients, to tell the donor exactly how much it was that they gave, and provide that back to them. But yeah, typically from a couple of days to 1 to 2 weeks. It really depends where the asset is held. If you open up, if your nonprofit account is at Fidelity and the donor's account is also at Fidelity, that's going to be very quick. Whereas if it's going from one brokerage to another, it can sometimes take a little bit more time.
Are there any nonprofits that are too small to accept gifts of stock?
No, none. So as Megan mentioned, you can go on Fidelity's website. They have a Fidelity for Business account, and you can set it up as a 501c3. You're naturally an incorporated organization. And so you're eligible to set one up, and they have no account minimums and no minimum balance that has to be held. And I verified with that by talking to their service team last week before this call, because I had a feeling that would be a question.
We have an organization that's invested with us. Their annual operating budget is $50,000. They operate, and they're an amazing organization. They operate on mostly all volunteers. They're helping teach girls education in India. They're amazing, but all it takes is one donor, one major donor that they had on their list to provide an endowment for them that is creating a sustainable revenue stream for them into the future. So, Natasha, no nonprofit is too small to be ready and start having these conversations, because I always say it only takes one donor.
Yeah, and you'll be surprised how many nonprofits we speak to where they go, oh, I know we're so small, we're too small, we can't do it. And they have like $1 million worth of investable assets, but they think they're too small. And I think that's because when you talk to the big banks of the world, even the vanguards of the world for nonprofits, they have a minimum of $10 million. Fact of the matter is, that's not the case. This is a tool that is available to any organization, no matter their size.
That's helpful to know for a lot of organizations. Like I see some organizations on here that I know are startups too, and just thinking that they may be thinking, oh, when I get to a certain size, I should start thinking about this. But you're saying, no, you need to start thinking of this whenever you get started.
Correct.
Just accepting donations in general.
Yeah.
This could help you get to that next level.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Absolutely. We've got 2 questions, and then we're going to call it today. Are there any types of stock we should decline?
No, I don't believe so. And it's not only stock you can receive as well. You can receive any form of security. So that could be stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, fixed income, so treasuries, corporate bonds, so on and so forth. I mean, the last ones that are pretty rare, and the reason is because you're donating an asset which has a large capital gain attached to it, and you want to be able to forgo paying capital gains taxes on that. So there isn't anything really that you can't accept. But we haven't run into that situation yet.
I think when we create an investment policy statement for our clients, we walk through what type of securities we want held in our portfolio, which types, because I'm thinking maybe this question may come up for an organization that maybe receives a donation of securities that maybe is in an industry that they don't support, or maybe goes against their mission. And in that case, again, you're able to cash out the stock and just receive the cash donation. So you're not holding that stock, but that would be all outlined in your investment policy statement, and then could be either cashed out or kept in your portfolio if it is a company that goes along with your mission and values.
No, that's really helpful, Megan. I actually just went to a seminar on accepting, it's called the tainted donor dilemma, but about accepting gifts from industries maybe that don't align with your values. So I think this goes along with that, and just to consider and have that in your investment policy. Okay, our last question is, if we receive stock, how do we know when to sell it to maximize the gift? Is this something
Sure.
that like Fidelity advises us on, or
Sure.
talk
I mean,
about
so
that.
for us, we work with nonprofits all the time, where we're the ones that help them facilitate these donations, and we have an investment policy statement in place where it's received into a donation account, and we liquidate it, and then we ask them, what do you want to do with these funds? Do you want to invest them for the long term in your endowment or in your investment account? Should we send to the checking account, so on and so forth? I really think that best practice upon receipt, especially if you are not working with an investment advisor, is to sell whatever security you get right away. Especially if you don't have, if that's not going into an endowment, if it's not being received into there and it's just into a standalone account where you don't have something like that set up, you don't really want to mess around. When you receive a security, work with Fidelity, you can call them up, or if you're smart enough, you can go online and do it, and sell it right there and then. You should, when assets are donated, they're typically part of a client's portfolio. If they own 50 securities and they're donating one, as part of that 50, it's pretty well diversified. But by itself, that's not a diversified asset. And okay, yes, it could appreciate, but they could also report earnings tomorrow and the stock would be down 10%. It happens a lot. So my advice is no nonsense approach. When you receive it, sell it. If you're working with an investment advisor, they're doing all that stuff for you and they have the processes in place.
Okay, and that language should... Go ahead, Megan.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, and also the research behind it. So, Chris has his own expertise, and then also has an entire investment committee, a whole team behind him that is always doing research, sharing ideas and knowledge. And so when you partner with an investment advisor, they can provide that expertise to walk you through what you should do, and in your specific situation, depending on what your goals are. But if you are just getting started out, then that's Chris's explanation was great.
Perfect. And that language to sell should be in your investment policy. Is that right? That this is what you're going to do? Okay, great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Chris and Megan, just for sharing your expertise on this issue and on being able to accept gifts of stock. I think that's going to be super helpful for some of the organizations that are on here today. And it was also beneficial for me in working with a lot of nonprofits. So really appreciate you both. And I would say to all the organizations on the call, please take Chris and Megan up on their offer to schedule a call, because even if you're not at the size nonprofit, to be able to work with them directly, you could even recommend them to other nonprofits that maybe are, or whenever you're at that level, you can start working with them as well. They're just two of the kindest people I know and incredibly generous with your knowledge and time. So thank you again, everyone. And thank you all of the organizations on this call today for all the work you're doing. And I hope that you all have a fantastic year end. And don't forget to fill out the survey for the $100 marketing credit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. This was great.
Yeah.
Bye.